All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to CETE. My name is Jim Austin. I'm the director of the Technical Testing Project, and this is the WebXam User Workshop. Wanted to acknowledge Brooke Parker and Bob Malman as well. First, I'm going to start with the end of an item writing workshop. This is a group of arts and communication instructors, happy to have finished the item writing process. I think I used that one because one of the subject matter experts had a dog in his car and brought it in for the group photo. What am I going to do? I'm going to talk about test development and delivery, our development schedule for 2016 and 17, education and training, and some other work. Talk about the types of tests that we develop and deliver: practice, post-test, pre-test, and field test. Enhancements and clarifications on WebXam and the technical testing project. Outcome level reporting, which we just launched last Monday. Pre-test gain reporting. Several other features. The data flow from CETE to different stakeholders. Talk about the WebXam news and calendar, staying up to date easily, and then question and answer or follow-up inquiries. We're always wanting to remind people that policy questions are best answered by ODE, specifically Leah Amstutz, whose name is on the assessment matrix for inquiries. Where do the tests come from in terms of development? Ohio subject matter experts are the key here. We use secondary instructors for the majority of item writing. We also include post-secondary instructors where there's a CTAN for alignment, and occasionally business, industry, or labor practitioners. Our pizza slice here goes from definition of the content domain, course outlines, development of a blueprint, which I'll speak more about, item writing, item review, field testing, forms assembly, and then finally maintenance and operation. For recruitment, we're always looking for subject matter experts. We've developed our procedures with ODE and ODHE input. Targeted communications to directors, supervisors, district test coordinators, and conferences, workshops like this one. WebXam news updates, newsletters, and blogs. News.webexam.org is the single best source of information. We generally issue a call for item writers that lists the career fields and the expected schedule. We ask people to express interest by filling out some forms at that website under the item writing tab. We check with ODE, invite people formally to the workshop, and we always hope for 100% attendance or advance notification if you can't make it. For 2016 and 17, we're working in the education and training career field with about 14 courses that are a blend of early childhood education and teaching professions. We're also working with 4 other career fields to do various types of patchwork. So there's some new courses in law and public safety to make a set of 4. There's work in engineering design to align a little better to Project Lead the Way, some courses in health, and also in construction. We use web videos to orient prospective item writers and thank item writers. We have a context video that gives the big picture. We have item writing, item review, field testing that explain those parts of the item writing and development process. In terms of test design, ODE has been converting to end-of-course testing pathways from the career field technical content standards. Course outlines are developed. We take those basically as a given, and we use those to create an end-of-course item bank of 80 to 100 items. In terms of developing the item bank features, we're looking for, as I said, about 95 items at several levels of challenge, C1 and C2. We review the items in a large group format to make sure they're technically accurate. We really appreciate all the help from local districts in doing this. After we review the items, we get ratings and performance standards judgments using iPads. We then do quality assurance by field testing and then are ready to launch the tests. Here's 3 examples taken largely from work done last year with ag. These are not secure items or anything, but C1 or recall items asking about first-generation bioenergy feedstocks being problematic because of one of those 4 options there. Injected materials in hydraulic fracturing consist of, and then a soil texture chart uses which components. So those are the types of low-level items. We have more challenging items. We try and write about 30 or 40% that ask the test taker to apply something in a new context. If they know a formula, give them some values and have them plug that in. Do analysis of a situation, sometimes with a scenario or a figure, and also sometimes do evaluation. Here's a soil texture chart that I pulled off public domain, and it's basically showing how clay, silt, and sand combine to create different types of soils. You can see how this type of graphic could be used to construct some C2 items where you're giving people values or percentages of the 3 components and asking them to identify what type of soil it is using those qualitative terms. The item banks that we created last year, which were just launched last Monday for field testing, include family and consumer sciences courses, hospitality and tourism, career field, agricultural and environmental systems, revised courses, and then welding technologies, which was an example of how we do occasional patchwork to create new item banks. We have different statistics, and the total is over 5,000 items that are out for field testing or quality assurance now. Stage 3, we test, conduct the field test. It's one of the final parts of quality assurance. We're looking for about 140 to 150 students to have taken the test in order for us to finalize it. We do psychometric analysis, and if that number of test takers is there, we finalize the forms. I believe that in 2015 and 16, we finalized about 70% of the forms. And it's important to know that if they're finalized, they're rescored and used in accountability. So 30% were not available for item analysis and rescoring because too few students took them. So those go out for a second year, and usually within 2 years, except for extraordinary circumstances, we're able to finalize them. We then assemble the test forms, 2 of them, a mandatory post-test following instruction, and an optional pre-test that's sometimes used for student gain measurement. We then maintain the forms, and we've been told that the new cycle is going to be about 5 years between revisions now. I believe that ODE will be starting some technical content standards revision work this fall, and that'll feed into revisions of end-of-course item banks next fall. Policy guidance is always provided by the assessment matrix, divided into columns for grades 9 through 11 and grade 12. It's the definitive source. It was posted around August 1st, right after Ohio ACTE, and I believe it was recently reposted. This is the cumulative testing year over year for the last few years, and you can see that there's been a dramatic climb. We attribute this to the availability of the tests, fact that they don't cost anything anymore, and some of the local report card reporting. In terms of the performance levels that we report, achievement is defined in 3 ordered categories and used in reporting to federal and state agencies. Non-proficient, or N, means limited or novice level, not mastered. Proficient means intermediate level and does indicate mastery or passing status. Advanced is the highest level, and that is above proficient mastery. Incomplete means that there's not enough test scores, and that's generally going to be 1 or 2 tests for a lot of juniors or underclass test takers. We report to the pathway test score, about which I'll say more shortly. Some of the timelines for 2016 and 17, the current year. Pre-testing windows for the optional pretest. We ran that from August 15th to September 16th and delivered over 31,000 tests to about 20 to 25,000 students. The January window is from January 2nd to the 27th. That's the winter window. Usually we have fewer test takers there. Depends on whether the courses are half-year or whole-year courses we've found. The post-test must be complete by April 21st of 2017 so that we can report out, so that you can get data into the ETP's system for student gain measurement. The field test window, again, for 80 to 100 questions. Usually they're about 90 to 95. It opened last Monday. It closes May 12th of 2017. We return the data if the test form finalizes about 3 to 4 weeks later. The reason for that is we need to do the item analysis and drop the poor performing items and assemble those forms. The post-test forms test window, this is 40 questions. It opened last Monday as well, and it closes on June 3rd of 2017. Data exports to the Information Technology Centers, or ITCs, is done in mid-June of 2017. This About the Assessments page at news.webexam.org is the best source of information. I've extracted a screenshot of that, which shows some of the ag and environmental systems. Notice that test blueprints can be reached. We've started posting those for public consumption at that small hyperlink below agriculture and environmental systems. And then you see information about the performance standard, basic or proficient and advanced. Is it in field testing? Does it have a pretest? I'm often asked about the data flow for state-level reporting, which is slightly different from what you see in your web exam reports. And basically, this is the flow from CETE. I tried to answer some questions about the participation score that you get on your compliance reviews at the top, and put a little bit about the performance at the bottom under this figure. But basically, WebExam outputs to the ITCs. There's a login and a download that occurs in that mid-June timeframe. The ITC works with the school district to finalize that data and then sends it to EMIS at ODE Career Technical Education. So if we look at the top, what information can be provided for participation, and what CETE can provide is the numerator of that proportion or percentage. So we can provide the number taught, the number tested rather. We don't know the number taught or the number of possible test takers. That denominator comes from the ITC and the district and is used by EMIS. I believe that an important thing to determine is what is the goal for participation, and I believe they've been moving that towards 100%. In terms of the performance for state-level reporting, what we report is a pathway test score, and a pathway test score is an average of the student scores and an average of the cutoffs for the tests that are taken. So local districts make decisions about which courses to offer. A minimum of 3 is needed. If you take a 4th or a 5th test, that will count in the process. And we report A, P, N, or I. A is for advanced, P is for proficient, N is for non-proficient, and I is, as I said before, incomplete. So if you're a 9th grader, 10th grader, 11th grader, and haven't taken 3 tests yet, you'd be reported as an incomplete. In terms of some trends in Ohio CTE testing, continuing to emphasize test security for score credibility. Changes in procedures we try to capture when we have our acceptable use policy, which is done at the first login each year for students, for instructors, for district test coordinators and intermediate administrators as well. We are documenting exceptions now. It's something that we're trying to do more of for score credibility. Here's an example. We had a request to drop a large number of pre-tests recently, and we have to document those sorts of things. Can you test from home? Even though it's a web-based system, we have proctoring and district-owned devices as part of the acceptable use policy, so you should not test from home. And in addition, validate interpretations of gain and growth for other purposes. We are switching to SSIDs over the next few years, so we're asking in upload files to have the SSID for data integrity and to avoid duplicates. In terms of some of the questions we've gotten from 2015 and 16 Ohio ACTE, questions with initial answers and some decisions. How can we be sure of the currency of the content? Well, the course outlines are public. They're created by ODE or another vendor and given to CETE. And as I said before, the cycle time is about 5 years now. Something going on with the welding tests in the manufacturing career field. Seemed like the cutoff scores were too high. We investigated that and looked at making some changes, which we did. In terms of test maintenance, we did implement a review of comments and were able to incorporate many of those suggestions before finalizing. So our process is going to be to collect comments from teachers at the teacher test reviews and other avenues, and then to make those changes when we finalize the form after field testing, after 1 or 2 years. Can we add an accommodation for limited English proficient students? We have received permission from ODE to do that, and we're just trying to develop the checkbox for documenting that. Proportions of C1, C2, and scenario items are between 60-40 and 70-30 splits in the final forms. In terms of pre-testing and score reporting, that score reporting has been released and will be available for the winter pre-testing, where we think it'll be of great use. And then FCS and testing and participation. CETE has recommended having a pathway test score, and that's being considered by ODE. In terms of test preparation strategies, we suggest that you use the latest course outline. You try the practice tests. We now have practice tests available for most of the earlier pathways. We just posted practice tests that can be taken by instructors and students for IT pathways. There are 20 items.
So we have two questions that came in from online. The first one is the scores for underclassmen that are sent to them as incompletes. Does that affect our report card?
I have no idea. We send the data to ODE, and whatever the the EMIS shop does is how that gets reported. It would seem to me that if it's incomplete, it could count for participation, but not for performance.
And then the second question, because I understand the life of a test is about 5 years. With those years is for a single test, do the questions rotate, or are they the exact same questions used each year?
We try to do maintenance every year, and if an item is performing poorly, it might have performed well enough to get on the form, but after it's in usage, it might stop performing well. We do try and rotate those out with replacement items from the item bank. Thanks for those questions coming in from the field, and I will take your questions shortly. Thanks. I was talking about practice tests. IT, ground transportation has one for the kind of mechanical, one for collision. There are occasional pathways we need to split up like that based on the occupational specializations underneath them. Also posted practice tests for cosmetology. Those go with law and public safety, construction, and some of the other courses that were done the first year, health sciences. We expect next year to do ones that are finalizing over this year. Another way is to obtain the blueprints when posted, and I showed you a sample of that, and then to use outcome level reporting, and the following pages have some samples there. This is an example for the test we wrote for welding technologies last year of the structure of the item bank. The percentage of items approved by subject matter experts for strand 1, business operations and 21st century skills, then strand 4, 5, and 7 are shown that way. So that kind of gives you the big picture of the item bank, and we try to follow that in creating the test forms. Here's an example of the outcome-based reporting that was launched. And so what you see here is the outcome designator or number, the code, the outcome statement, your students and statewide percentages. I believe this is construction electrical systems as the course. So again, this doesn't go down to the competency level, but competencies are sampled for the test. And so outcome level was determined to be the appropriate level for reporting. And then I'm going to take your questions now, and then we're going to go to an intermission. I think, I know.
My name is Asif Shah, and I'm CT Nursing and Allied teaching instructor at Zenith Academy North.
Okay.
And I think I have a couple of questions initially when I started teaching about the web exam. And I had a correspondent with Mr. Dr. Austin. I don't know who is that. I'm not familiar. So, okay. Nice to see you, sir.
Yes.
And my question is that do we have practice tests for the health science and technology specific subject?
We don't do it at the course level. It is done at the pathway level, and so we're trying to sample a few items from each course, not to expose too many. So allied health and nursing, health information management, bioresearch, and sports medicine and exercise science, I believe, are the 4 pathways. And I think we have a practice test for each of those.
Okay, so we don't have any practice test for health science and technology as such.
I believe that is a course, right?
That's a course, yeah.
We would not have a practice test. We're not rich enough in our item banks
Okay.
to be able to do that. And the goal of the practice test is to give you a flavor of what the 40-item form is going to be like. So I try to pick some of the C1 recall items, some of the C2 higher level items, some items with scenarios. And if I can pick one with an illustration or a graphic, I do that.
Okay. Okay, got it. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the face-to-face audience? Yes.
On the pretest, when they were selected, you've got different levels, the C1 and C2 levels. For the pretest, are they the bank the same as the post-test? Are they pulling from the same, or are they different level questions?
What we're trying to do there is have a content-balanced form that's the same. We do have a few items that are in common. They're called anchor items. The other items would be unique to the pretest or the post-test, but they do come out of the same item bank that's constructed. And then what we do in the item analysis to finalize the form and have the post-test and pretest is drop poor performing items, match the blueprint, and use the subject matter expert judgments.
Okay.
I have one coming in from online. Let me take that one and address yours next, if I may.
Okay, we actually have two from online.
Oh.
So, what practice tests are available for FCS at this time, or are there not any because they're still in field testing?
You answered your own question, online participant. Basically, we wait until the pathway is finalized because we want to have the largest number of courses to select from. So FCS just started field testing. I think there's probably enough students. I would expect a high rate of finalization, but it might be until next year for some of them.
Yeah. All right, and then the other question is, you mentioned earlier that ODE is considering a pathway test for FCS. Would this be for all of our pathways combined, or one each for our 4 pathways?
Yes, and content domains is the term we've been using, and FCS, there's been kind of a tension over time as to its status as workforce development or not. So those decisions are still being mulled over or considered by ODE staff, and they'll make the final policy determination.
My question is, are districts able to retest students that have scored non-proficient on a previously given post-test from a prior year?
Yes, they are. Our policy is 1 testing per year. So a student who is 9th, 10th, or 11th grade would have corresponding number of years to complete that, just not within the same year. And WebXam does use, and this has been for several years now, the highest score that the student attained. If there are, there is one more.
I should have asked this before, kind of part 2. On those pre-tests, we had some students take those tests, and some scored really high, higher than we would expect on a pre-test. But they were saying that they guessed because they had to choose, multiple choice, so they felt they had to select. So, they might have been lucky guesses also. Is there a way to put on there on the pre-test that an option is, I don't know, so they don't feel like they have to answer if they don't really know the answer to it, and so that they're not just guessing correctly?
Well, we are aware that if you score too high, there's not as much room because there's 40 items. One solution is to increase the testing size to 50 items, for example. I'll certainly consider that option, but since most of ours are 4-option multiple choice, I don't know if we can just add a 5th option without scrambling our IT staff gathered around this room, scrambling their brains. We do have a scaling teacher effectiveness survey that's running right now, and we sent out an announcement in our latest newsletter last week, I believe, and gave a web link for that. And our logic for that is that's how we establish the initial cut scores for the first, or scaling into the most effective to least effective. We did that a couple of years ago. We figure that now people have had more experience, and it might be easier for instructors and administrators to make those judgments now. So I would encourage people to respond to that survey and to ask your instructors to do that at the districts. I plan on leaving it up until about December 30th, analyzing the data, and we'll report out on that. If there are no others, I think we'll go to intermission and then presentation by the IT architects. Thank you.